I stood by everyone in their hard times, but when I needed help, they left me alone. My name is Arman, and this is the story of how I spent years helping others through their darkest moments, only to discover who truly cared about me when my own life fell apart. For most of my life, I believed that kindness always came back to you. I believed that if you stood by people when they were struggling, they would stand by you when you needed them. I believed that loyalty created loyalty and that friendship meant supporting each other through good times and bad. Unfortunately, life taught me a much harsher lesson. It all began when I was 24 years old. I worked as a sales executive in a growing company. My salary wasn't huge, but it was enough for me to live comfortably and help people whenever they needed me. I was known among my friends as the person who never said no. If someone needed money, I helped. If someone needed advice, I listened. If someone needed emotional support, I stayed up all night talking to them. At that time, I thought this made me a good friend. One of my closest friends was Samir. We had known each other since college. During our final year, his father lost his job and his family faced serious financial difficulties. Samir was devastated. One evening, he came to me with tears in his eyes. "I don't know what to do anymore," he said. "My family is struggling and I might have to leave college." Without hesitation, I gave him most of my savings. It wasn't a loan. I didn't even ask him to return it. I simply wanted to help, because that's what friends do. Thanks to that support, Samir completed his education. He often told people that I had changed his life. Hearing that made me happy. A few years later, another friend named Hassan went through a painful breakup. The girl he loved ended their relationship suddenly. He became depressed. Every night he called me. Sometimes he talked for hours. Sometimes he cried. Sometimes he just wanted someone to listen. Even when I was exhausted after work, I stayed awake with him. For nearly 6 months, I helped him rebuild his confidence. Eventually, he recovered. He thanked me repeatedly. "You are the best friend anyone could ask for," he said. I believed him. Then there was Bilal. He wanted to start a small business but couldn't afford the initial investment. I spent weeks helping him create a business plan. I introduced him to contacts. I even invested some money. His business eventually became successful. He often said that he owed much of his success to me. Years passed. One by one, I helped people through financial problems, family crises, relationship troubles, career struggles, and emotional breakdowns. Whenever someone called, I answered. Whenever someone needed support, I showed up. I never expected rewards. I never kept counter. I simply believed that helping others was the right thing to do. Then came the year that changed everything. It started with bad news from my company. The business was struggling financially. Management announced layoffs. Many employees lost their jobs. I was one of them. After 5 years of loyal service, I walked out of the office carrying a small box containing my belongings. I felt shocked, terrified, lost. For the first time in years, I didn't know what to do. I spent weeks applying for jobs. Every day I sent resumes. Every day I attended interviews. Every day I received rejection emails. My savings began disappearing quickly. Rent bills and daily expenses continued piling up. Stress became my constant companion. Still, I remained hopeful. I believed my friends would support me the same way I had supported them. After all, I had always been there for them. Surely they would be there for me. Right. I decided to call Samir, the same Samir whose education I had helped save. When he answered, he sounded busy. I explained my situation. I told him I had lost my job and was struggling financially. There was a long silence. Then he said, "Bro, things are difficult for everyone right now." I understood. I wasn't asking for money. I simply needed advice or encouragement. But within a few minutes, he ended the call. "We'll talk later." Later never came. Days passed. No message. No phone call. Nothing. I felt disappointed, but tried not to judge him. Maybe he was genuinely busy. Next, I reached out to Hassan, the friend whose heartbreak I had helped heal. We met for coffee. I told him everything. I expected understanding. Instead, he spent most of the conversation talking about his new relationship and upcoming vacation. Whenever I mentioned my problems, he quickly changed the subject. At the end of our meeting, he said, "You'll figure it out? You're strong?" Then he left. Again, I walked home feeling alone. A few weeks later, my situation became worse. My savings were nearly gone. I was behind on rent. Anxiety kept me awake every night. Desperate, I contacted Bilal. His business was now thriving. I hoped he might know about job opportunities. When I called him, he didn't answer. I sent messages. No response. I waited. Nothing. Days turned into weeks. Eventually, I realized he was intentionally ignoring me. The realization hurt more than I could describe. These weren't strangers. These were people whose lives I had helped improve. Yet when I needed support, they disappeared. The loneliness became overwhelming. Every morning felt heavier than the last. I stopped going out. I stopped answering calls from people. I stopped believing in friendship. For months I struggled alone. I sold personal belongings to pay bills. I cut expenses wherever possible. Some nights I barely slept. Other nights I stared at the ceiling wondering what I had done wrong. One evening while sitting alone in my apartment, I looked through old photos on my phone. There were pictures of birthdays, road trips, celebrations, and gatherings with friends. Everyone looked happy. Everyone looked close. Yet when life became difficult, almost all of them vanished. That night I cried. Not because of money, not because of unemployment, but because I finally understood that many relationships in my life had been one-sided. I had mistaken dependence for friendship. People loved receiving my support, but very few were willing to give support in return. It was a painful realization. However, life wasn't finished teaching me lessons. One afternoon, I received a call from an unexpected person. Her name was Sana. She was an old colleague I hadn't spoken to in nearly 2 years. We were friendly, but never particularly close. She had somehow heard about my situation through mutual acquaintances. "How are you really doing?" she asked. Nobody had asked me that question in months. For the first time, someone genuinely seemed interested in the answer. I told her everything. To my surprise, she listened carefully. She didn't interrupt. She didn't change the subject. She didn't offer fake sympathy. She simply listened. After our conversation, she sent me links to several job openings. Over the next few weeks, she regularly checked on me. She encouraged me whenever I felt hopeless. She reviewed my resume. She helped me prepare for interviews. Most importantly, she reminded me that my value wasn't determined by my current circumstances. Her kindness gave me strength. Eventually, one of the companies she recommended invited me for an interview. Then another. After months of rejection, I finally received a job offer. I still remember the moment I read the email. My hands were shaking. Tears filled my eyes. I had never felt so relieved. When I got the job, many of my old friends suddenly reappeared. Messages started arriving. "Congratulations, so proud of you. We should meet soon." Some even acted as if they had been supporting me all along, but I wasn't the same person anymore. Hardship had changed me. I had learned who genuinely cared and who only cared when life was easy. I remained polite. I held no grudges. But I stopped investing my energy in people who disappeared during difficult times. Instead, I focused on building healthier relationships based on mutual respect, honesty, and support. Over time, Sana and I became very close friends. She had shown me more kindness during one difficult year than many others had shown throughout a decade. One day I asked her why she had helped me. She smiled. "Because everyone deserves someone beside them when life gets hard." Her words stayed with me forever. Years later, my life became stable again. I built a successful career. I achieved financial security. I made new friends. But the experience never left me. Today, whenever someone asks me about friendship, I tell them this story. Not everyone who celebrates your success is your friend. Not everyone who calls you during happy times truly cares about you. The real test of any relationship happens during hardship. When you lose your job, when you face failure, when you're heartbroken, when life becomes difficult. That's when you discover who truly belongs in your life. I don't regret helping people. Kindness is never wasted. Helping others made me a better person. But I learned an important lesson. Never measure friendship by how many people stand beside you when you're winning. Measure it by who stays when you're struggling. Because when everything falls apart, the people who remain are the ones who truly matter. And sometimes the person who saves you won't be someone you've helped before. Sometimes it will be someone who simply chooses to care. That is the day I learned that true friendship is rare. Loyalty is priceless, and the people who stay during your darkest moments are worth more than 100 people who only appear in the light.